All right, that was my son calling to tell me he's coming down to the park in a few minutes, so I guess that's my sign to hurry up and wrap this up. So anyways, engagement mode, there's just not a lot of dialogue happening. And so what I wanted to do for this presentation, really for the workshop element of it, to get some feedback on from people, in the presentation, in the PowerPoint, I put in some samples of a multi-user cluster, as well as a semi-dialogic, as well as a dialogic thread. And I just wanted to point out a couple things about them. I'll let you read the actual comments, but what I find interesting about the multi-user cluster is that there's lots of replies. There's no one's talking to each other, though. It's multi-directional, but there's no convergence on any kind of meaning, right? So in terms of the ripples in the discourse, they're not coming together, right, and making sense. It's just kind of a branching tree, and so there's no real resolution in it. So I guess you could say it's like a meaning hasn't formed, right? And again, for the purpose of my project, what I'm looking at is how does this discursive space create meaning. So then in the second example, the semi-dialogic, there is some interaction, but it also doesn't stabilize. The person starts off with an argument that it's introduced, and there are replies that actually engage with that, and they even go one layer deep, in one case two, in terms of the thread. But it's not sustained, and the frame keeps shifting. So the first comment does start with an argument, but it doesn't really still get to a point as a back and forth. One of the replies doesn't answer it, another one reframes it entirely, another one counter-justifies, another shows breakdown through confusion, another brings out just an unsupported claim. There's one that is, just some emojis. And in the end, the last one is some kind of moral reframing and almost justification. And then the third sample is the dialogic one. And this one is interesting, especially to me, because it's rare. It's one of only two where there's actual dialogue between users, and like where there is a sustained dialogue. And but it's not on topic. It's not even about the video. It goes into religious territory around, basically, if there was what, if people would follow God, that this wouldn't happen, and then there's back and forth between them. But again, it just kind of escalates into this, almost like, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, no, you're right, no, you're wrong. But again, it's not even on the topic of the video. And so we're basically, I just find it interesting that two threads then, the other one is very similar to this, the two threads out of 74 that have any sustained dialogue aren't really even about the video or the event. There are a number of false flag conspiracy in the whole data set. In my paper, I'm going to talk more about that, and look at kind of what some of the themes are, and the engagement, the primary move, and the strategy that people are using to create meaning. But for this presentation, and what I wanted to get some feedback on for the workshop, is what counts as dialogue in online discourse. This whole thing got me thinking. I was expecting, I had not seen this video before. Obviously, like I said, the event itself shook me, and I knew I wanted to find something about it. And when I found this video, and the fact that it's an eyewitness account, it's kind of controversial. It's not what these ripples are not what I expected, because there weren't really a lot of ripples that were saying much. And so I guess where I am at right now with making sense of this discourse analysis is, what do we do? Like, how do we make sense of this when engagement isn't really interaction, when replies are not actually dialogue, and arguments don't really even go into argumentation? And so if I had to boil this down into a workshop question that if I could get feedback on, it's, if these comment spaces are not producing dialogue, even when they appear active, how should I understand what kind of communication they are? because I started out by asking what counts as, I started asking myself, like, what counts as engagement. And initially I saw this as failed dialogue, but then I got to thinking, wait a second, are they even trying to, is this space even trying to create dialogue? Is this a different kind of communication? And so should I look at this as failed dialogue, or is there something else happening in this space, maybe around the context of the time? It's May 2025, where people kind of burnt out about the Gaza war. There are some pro-Israel quote unquote comments, but they don't even get likes or replies. It's like there's no engagement even with those. So yes, that's what I'll leave it at. In my paper, I'm going to be zooming out more than just this topic a bit, like bringing in more of the data set. But for now, I will leave it at this. I think I went overtime, as probably always do for presentations. Maybe I'll try to edit out some of the first part, the first video. But that's what I've been working on for the last couple weeks in the semester, and thank you for your participation, and I look forward to any comments. All right, Shabbat Shalom from Tel Aviv.